So, afternoon, everyone. My name is Brandon Olin, Dev Black Ops on Twitter. This session is about developing with PowerShell classes and Here Be Dragons. And what this really means is, what are some of the gotchas that you're more than likely going to find, or at least these are all the things that I found when working with classes and developing with them and creating modules with them. So hopefully this is useful to you, and this will help guide you when you actually, if you do start using them, what not to do, or if you do like pain and suffering, go ahead. These links go to SpeakerDeck and to the GitHub repo for these demos. The slide, this is like 5 slides, so it's useless. But the GitHub repo will have all the demo code that I have here. So here's our agenda. What are PowerShell classes? I'm going to give a very brief overview of what they are. This session is not really about how to write classes. If you went to Jeremy's session about his info blocks right there, he did a good overview of more in depth about classes themselves and what you can do with them. This is more about, okay, after you decided to use them and you have them, what are the headaches you're probably going to run into importing them, sharing them with other modules, and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully these kind of tie, I think, pretty well together. I'll go over a little bit about why you would use classes. And really the bulk of this is all these gotchas, and there's a few more of these about what you're probably going to encounter. And then hopefully we got a little time for Q&A at the end. So here's an example, or 2 examples of what a really basic class is. On the left-hand side, you see we have a class that defines what a car will look like, and a couple of basic properties about that car: manufacturer, model, and year, and a method that operates on that class called drive, and it obviously does what it says it does. And at the very bottom is how you would instantiate that class with the new method, or one of the ways you can do this. On the right-hand side is a little bit more advanced stuff of what you can do with classes, and this is where you actually start getting more of the benefit of using them, is code reuse. Is I want to create a new class called a Tesla, and obviously it's going to inherit a lot of the properties from a car class. It's also going to define a couple new ones: max speed, range, and so forth. And then we're going to set those when we on the default constructor on this class. We're going to set some properties on it. This is just really a basic example of what you would do with a class. But why would you want to actually use classes? I kind of think of it as, once you start using PowerShell to create applications versus admin scripts that are pretty linear, you're starting to morph into the realm of development, and you start needing to think about some of these more developy type terms. I'm not a developer. I know a little C#. I know some JavaScript. I hate it. I didn't go to college. I'm a dumb Marine. So, yeah. I've just learned this stuff by trial and error, and sheer force of will. But the main reasons you would use a class is separation of concerns. You want this instance of a class to do one thing. Another class has a different set of concerns. It does something entirely differently. You don't want this code to bleed into each other. And this is really about just code reuse and keeping things tidy and orderly. And this is much more important when you start developing big applications. You need to cordon off what these things do from each other. That's it for the slides. So, demo is really about, now you know everything you need to know about how to use a class, right? Okay. I'm going to run through, hopefully I have time to run through these 12 scenarios about classes. And this intentionally shows you a lot of red. And this is, to hide my errors and to fool you. But this is really to show you what you're probably going to see once you start using classes and try to work with them. This is the stuff you're going to see and how to work around them. So the first scenario here is, we all know what import module does, imports modules. let's say I have a class in a module. Let's look at this, this my class. Very basic module, has a manifest, nothing special there. Nothing special really in the PSM1. It has a class called foo. We want to use that class in our PowerShell session. Well, you would think, we've all done this, we want to use a function or something of a module, we import the module and expect that to work. Do you think that's going to work? Yeah. Can't type. No, of course it doesn't work. Unable to find type foo. Why is that? Does anyone actually know that the true reason why that doesn't work?
So the class is defined in module scope and is not exported. That may not be as deep as what you're looking for.
I actually don't know the true technical reason. If Bruce Pyatt was in here, he'd probably tell me why. I just know it doesn't export the class. If you actually dig into the PowerShell code for import module and using module, you'll probably find out why that is. But the gist of it is, the raw class and the type is not exposed when you import the module. So how do we work around that? You're stealing my thunder. Using class, which was introduced in PowerShell 5, is how, or using module, I should say, is how you would use a module with the class in it. Let's see what this does. This is and there's all kinds of gotchas with using module, and I'll go over some of them. So, but this worked. This is how you would use a module. It'll import the module and expose that class to your session. And now I have access to the raw class type, and I can instantiate an instance of it. And you can see that it did actually import the myClass module. So great, right? You think that, okay, using module is the answer for all of this. Yeah. No. This is how you were using it in InfoBlocks module is you can hide all your classes internally to the module and expose them with just normal PowerShell functions or commandlets. Let's see what this does. So actually, let's look at this car module. I should probably do that. This is what I tend to do with my modules is I like to break them up into small little pieces. I have public and private and classes in separate files. And I think most people do that probably now. Is that true? Yeah. I like to be tight. I don't like a 10,000 line PSM1. Let's see if this works. So I have a class folder. I have a simple class called car that's in that. My PSM1 dot source is that class file when it imports. And then I have a normal PowerShell function that will create an instance of that car, set some properties, and then return it. And so this is, whoops, this is my, this new car function is my way of interacting with this, this class. So you can see that worked. I imported the module. I created a new class, I should say an instance of a class. Do a get member, I can see. It's car. I can do everything I want. This is a normal PowerShell object at this point. Oops, because I didn't script scope it. You can see that. I can then pipe that and format list, format table, whatever you want to do with that, like any other object. So that gets around one problem with classes not being exposed from a module is you basically expose them with a function, which means you also have to write new function, or you have to create a function that new something to create an instance of your class and give it back to you. These scenarios kind of go in order of complexity, and so here's a gnarly one. So let's say I have a car class, and I have a Tesla, or a car module and a Tesla module. This Tesla module is completely separate from the car, but I want to extend the car for whatever reason. I have this, someone exposed this, created this really nice class. I want to be able to use it in my stuff, in my own module. I want to be able to inherit from it. Can you do that? Let's actually just put these in my path real quick. So I'm going to import Tesla, and it doesn't work. And why is that? Anyone have a guess? You're still, that's skipping ahead. This is how you would normally define a dependency in a module, right? In a manifest. Do required modules? I have that. I require the module. Why didn't it work? It should have imported car before it loaded Tesla. What's that?
Because you're defining the Tesla class, it has no idea what car it is because it's not exposed.
It has no idea. Just say it's the same problem as import module. Because internally to PowerShell, required modules is probably just running import module or some variation of it. So you run into the same issue. And this theme of all these things, a lot of these things stem from that core problem right there. So the dragon in this is that, yeah, required modules does not expose the classes, just like import module does. Same problem as scenario 1. And you also find with developing with classes, at least I'll be setting up a class and tweaking it. Oftentimes I get in a weird state, and I just end up restarting my session just to make everything sane. So let's add, hello. So we'll fix the Tesla module. So we had a hard, all right, so we had a hard dependency on the car module with the required modules in the manifest. So let's remove that because we know that that doesn't work. So let's comment this out. And inside, and we'll create a soft dependency, and you really shouldn't do this. But so now inside, when I import that module, I'm gonna assume the car is already on the machine, and I have to assume that here. And there's other issues with doing this. Now things like PS Gallery and stuff, you try to publish these to the PowerShell gallery. You're not telling the gallery that you have a dependency on this other module. That's completely hidden from those.
So you couldn't leave both of them? You couldn't leave the requires in your manifest and also do this?
The requires, I don't know. I don't know if that'll work. Let's see. See if I have time to test that. So I think I had that already. Double check. So let's try to import now. It doesn't work. Anyone have a clue why? I'm using module. I have it as the first executable thing in my script, and that's also another requirement with using module. No? Let's go back to the car. I dot sourced it. So classes aren't exposed, even with using module, if they're dot sourced from the PSM1. They have to be in the PSM1. And that sucks, because I don't like 10,000 line PSM1 files. But we got to do what we got to do. So let's just pull this out of there, and let's stick it in here. And let's try this again. Save. It works. So now I can do new car, new Tesla, and there you go. But that sucks, you know. It's problematic. I no longer have a hard dependency on the car module. It's dangerous for me to publish this because someone else pulling it down is not going to get that dependency. And again, it's the same core problem as that classes and using module, they need to be in the PSM1, not dot sourced. So let's try this a different way. Let's try to have a hard dependency on the module with required modules and use a class in the PSM. Well, actually, that's what I did right there. Okay, we have a hard dependency in required mod. Oh, no, sorry. Let's put that back. The car module is now correct. The class is in the PSM1. Let's take this using module out and do this how we think it should work. Anyone know why this when you paste is like really slow? Does anyone see that? Anyone have that too?
Yeah. Sometimes PowerShell outputs like that too.
Yeah.
I usually only see that in the integrated window.
Yeah.
VSW.
It doesn't work. So this is what we would think we would need to do is have the require in the required modules. Again, the core problem is that required modules is not running using module under the covers. It's using import module, and we already know that doesn't work. So no joy. Required modules is not using module. Soft dependency on car module, so we already did that one, I believe. Yes, we did. Yeah, this works. It's yuck though. Like I said, things like PowerShell Gallery, we won't know about this dependency. If you try to import it, you have to assume that person already has that dependent module on the box, and that's not good. And everyone clear on that? That's a kind of a long set of scenarios there. I should say, anyone not clear? So let's restart this just in case. So we have classes, Tesla and car, and I want to import this thing. Let's just .source this and see if it works. Is it going to work? No, of course it's not. Normally, functions, PowerShell functions, you can write them in any order. The PowerShell is going to parse the whole thing before it does anything with them. Not so with classes. Order matters. So let's fix that. And there you go. That works. This is a real pain in the butt once you have a fairly advanced module and lots of classes, and the things depend on each other, and you need to order them such. So.
Do you know if they're planning to improve any of this? Is this
I don't know. I know someone that I've worked with on a way to kind of like recursively try to import classes, and then eventually it'll work. Yeah, just keep on going until you've run out of exceptions. And that actually does work, but that's, yeah. Yeah, or I told them, I was like, you could probably use like the abstract syntax tree and parse this stuff and then do a bunch of magic on your own to parse all these files, come up with a graph of things to import, and then import them.
I don't even think you can get to the AST without, like it tries to compile
Oh, does it?
to even get to that AST file.
I haven't even tried it, so okay.
I think we attempted something like that.
Nice.
And had no success there.
Okay, so don't do that. So this is not really a dragon. This is really just an FYI with classes. You want to hide properties from a class. Maybe they're internal to the class. You don't want people to muck with them. But hidden. So you do that with this hidden keyword on a property. And so we have a class. Let's create a new instance of it. So we have our name property. It's public. We don't see our secret and our super secret password hunter2. But we can always get to this if we really want to with force. And we can see the secret property there. You can also see a bunch of other methods that PowerShell has created for you on this class and get and set. And this is internally how these properties are being set. So can I actually see that secret? One thing it does not do is give you tab completion on these. So if I do I hit tab, I should tab expand this and see this property like you would normally expect. Hidden properties don't do that. So you have to know what you're looking for, and you can see it. And you can also set it, of course. This is not a locked property. So don't use this don't use this to store secrets that you're thinking that you're going to hide from people. If people, and this is the same in C#, hidden properties are not meant to hide things. They're meant to tell people not to use them. They're internal to the class, and they're implementation details of the class. They're like private APIs. And you run the risk of breaking things when you try to use internal things, because it's on them to change them. They give you public properties to use. Don't use the internal ones because they're free to change them. So that's really the kind of the gist of hidden properties. Not to hide secrets from you, just to tell the developer or the user, this is stuff that you don't, this is just inside baseball stuff, don't use it. So not really a dragon, but they're not private, and even private in C# is not really private. You can still get to them. It's just hidden and not very well. Am I doing that time? Okay. Verbose in debug. This is not really also a dragon, but this is just another stuff that as more of an FYI about working with classes. I got this demo class from a fellow on Stack Overflow. But this just kind of gives you a nice rundown of how verbose and debug work inside classes. So let's import this. So we have a class and then two functions. So inside these functions, we have a normal function. It's going to create a new instance of that class, run a method on it, pretty simple. And we have an advanced function with commanded binding that gives us our verbose and debug and what if and all that kind of fun stuff. All the stuff we should be using for every single function we write, right? Right. I don't see any reason not to use advanced functions personally. They just give you a lot of stuff for free. So that works just like we would expect it. We create a new instance, pass it a property. Let's try the advanced. Verbose, works like we would expect it to. You can see my verbose messages in my constructor and in my method. Debug should work the same way, right? And it appears to. It ran my debug message right there. So that's cool. But, there's always a but. Well, actually, this works. So we'll just manually set our verbose preference in our session. So we're not going to wrap it around a function, and we'll create a new instance. I don't have verbose turned on. I shouldn't expect any output, and that's correct. Let's turn it on and run it again. We get our verbose message like we'd expect. Does debug work? It worked in the function. So we'll set it to inquire. This will also work with, I should say not work with continue. Where's my debug message? The debug is turned on. Verbose seemed to work, not debug. Did anyone know why, or have seen this? Because I don't know the answer. I think this is a bug. Well, so does verbose. They're both in separate streams. Well, if we do continue, it won't do that, right? Nah, I don't see it. So, I think this is a bug. I'm just curious if anyone else has seen this. I'll probably raise this, but to me, that should work just like verbose. So that is a potential gotcha. If you want to manually work these classes and you want to turn on debug, you got to wrap it in a function, and that sucks for debugging purposes. All right, so requires. How many people use the requires module? Okay, some people. I personally don't use it. I think there's some problems with it. This is just yet another one of them. And I'll show you why. Oh, don't do that. So requires is at the beginning. Let me run this in my session. Make sure I'm all fresh. Requires also does not import the module correctly. Using module is the only way to do this. That sucks. So requires not going to happen. Let's use that. Let's do that. That worked. I should dot source this. And I got my instance. So using module, don't use it if you want to work directly with classes. It's not going to work. Same problem as one in scenario 4 or something like that. The other problem with requires modules is that it tends to swallow exceptions. If you're trying to import a module and that module it fails to import and is throwing errors, your script, you're not going to see the actual reason why that module didn't import. It's hiding stuff from you. So it can lead to some debugging pain if you try to use requires. So requires doesn't import classes. So run me first again. Refresh. Okay. So I have a module here called fruit, 2 versions of it, 1 and 2. These don't do anything particularly special. They have a couple classes in there about, a fruit-based class and an apple that extends it. And then I got version 2. The only real difference between these is I think version 2 added like calories as a property. Let's close that. Okay. So I should be able to see them here. So I added that. I can see version 1 and 2. That's great. Using module, because we know that's the correct way to do these things. I'm going to import fruit, but hey, I got 2 versions of it. Which one did I import? I imported version 2, the latest, like you would expect if you didn't specify a version and you have multiple versions on the machine. It's going to import the latest. What if I want to import an older one? What's going to happen? Do you think that's going to work? Of course not. Yeah, there's a theme here, right? So got that, I got that. So everyone know what module specifications are? Where you can basically have a hash table of the name and the version, and you can use this with import module and just give it that hash table to import that specific one. Do you think that would work? It does, kind of. It imported the module correctly. Why is this here? I said version 2. What version did you think it actually loaded? Oh, well, sorry. I wanted version 1. Why is version 2 here? Strike that, reverse it. Oh, I restarted my session, didn't I? Did I? Okay. Why do I have 2? Why did 2 get loaded? I don't know. I told it 1. Yeah. No, I told it 1. I want 1. This is the module specification. Is giving you a specific version to import.
Did you say 2? Will it load 1?
No, it'll load the latest always. Yeah. So that's not cool. Why the latest version? I think this is also a bug. I got to do some more investigation, try to figure out some other edge cases to see why this is working this way. But module specifications don't work, or don't appear to work anyway. Not the way you would think. So let's look at a more complex module. Fittingly named complex module. So, and this is when I write modules, this is how my common structure, and probably most of it, you know, a lot of people here is public and private, and maybe classes if you have one. You got your manifest and PSM1, and your PSM1 does dot sources stuff, or you know, maybe does a couple of initialization stuff. So I have a build script that just kicks off Saki. Anyone not know what Saki is? Okay, it's a build, it's a task framework, kind of like make, rake, bake. I think there's a bake. There's one of these for pretty much every language, and they always sound like ache, except for Saki, because PS ache is odd sounding, and Saki sounds cooler. But it's a build automation framework where you can set up tasks and dependencies. So you have to, you know, usually for compiling code, I use it for other things as well. As a side, I am as of about 6 months ago, I'm now the maintainer of Saki. It's gone through a couple maintainers over the years. I'm the current Red Pirate Roberts, for now anyway. And if you're interested in Saki, you can hit me up after this. But I have a build script that this is going to run Saki, and I can look at my Saki task. I'm not going to go over too much of this, but basically, I have a task to clean my output folder, just wipe everything. I have a task to compile the module. You know, we're not really compiling stuff in PowerShell, but really what I'm doing here is just gathering up all these source files and just shoving them into a PSM1, just concatenating them all. Because we know, we saw from the other scenarios, classes need to be in the PSM1. I hate having a giant PSM1. I want to keep everything in source separated. So when I build my module, I just load up everything and put it in the PSM1 at build time. The other caveat to this, I should say, these are my classes. We have a planet-based class. We have Mars and Earth. They inherit from planet. We know that order matters. So the order in which you concatenate them in the PSM1 also matters. And this is pretty simple with 3 classes, but like my PoshBot module, which I'll talk about on Thursday, has like 30 and different dependencies on different ones. And initially, what I was thinking was, oh, well, I'll just order them 01, 02, 03, and I'll just sort them and concatenate them in order. And that just like, I was like, oh my God, this is just like basic, and go to 10 and 20 and 30, and then I want to insert a 15, and you know, what if I have 01 and 02, and then I need to put one in the middle, and 01.5, and I was like, well, this is just stupid. So I quickly decided not to depend on the file names to order these. I'm just brute forcing it. I just define them in the order that I know that they're going to import. It works, you know, for my case. But we have a module, or an array of files. We're going to concatenate them and just add them to a PSM1 file. So we do the same thing with our private and public functions. These don't, the order of these don't matter, just like normal PowerShell. So let's see what this does. So I created a bin folder, the version of the module I'm working with. I got my manifest, and I got my nice big PSM1. No, in my PoshBot module, this is like 8,000 lines. So this is my way of solving some of these problems with modules. Is just some of it's just brute force. Yeah.
So could you somehow evaluate the hard dependencies of the different classes, and based on that, build your
The order of them?
order? Yeah.
That's kind of like the problem he was talking about. Is like That my solution or potential solution was maybe looking at AST and inspecting these files to figure out what depends on what and create a dependency graph of the order you know, dynamically.
We ended up, I think, just using text parsing. So like you grab the text between the colon and the first bracket, and then you look for a file with
Yeah.
that name.
That sounds great. Yeah. Yeah. It works. Yeah. A lot of the stuff it works. You know. Yeah.
So class resolution in PowerShell, because I've looked at the source code, is done at parse time, which is why it won't let you build an AST
Yeah.
if you can't resolve the classes. And it was done for .NET class compatibility apparently.
Okay.
But that's what's causing all of these problems.
Yeah.
That's why the using module stuff works differently, and it's why because PowerShell parser is a one pass, it forces you to define classes in dependency order, which I totally understand sucks.
Yeah. It does suck.
Yeah. But that's like, I just wanted to give you the root explanation.
Yeah. I have a thanks for that. I've looked at some of the PowerShell code for the using, and I know that parse time thing. I didn't know the technical reasons on why it's different and why classes aren't exposed. That's another. I haven't got a good explanation about why that's the case and why using modules is needed in the first place.
So I guess what we need is a red marking order.
Yeah, some custom loader, you know, or I mean, but ideally this stuff is handled in PowerShell itself. That's really at the end. This is really just trying to highlight issues that I find with these. So, and I already know the classes they're not 100%. They got added to 5, and I don't think they've really changed in 6. I don't know what the roadmap is on classes and what they're going to fix.
You could potentially use get type data to see if the type exists in your build script, and if it doesn't, check to see if there's a file that contains it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I got a few more minutes here. Let me. So that's my compiled module. That's how I do it. Is I just mainly create a big monolithic PSM1. I ship it. But the same problems with using module apply in that case. You have to use using module if you want to get access to those raw classes directly. So these two are a little extra to see if I had time, and I do. Classes, so anyone know what an abstract, or not know what an abstract class is in PowerShell, or I should say in C#? The gist of it is that, let me see if I got an example right here. And I'm not a developer, so this is my layman's term, is an abstract class is not a thing that you actually create. You don't create an instance of an animal. That doesn't make any sense. You create an instance of a cat and a dog. Those are subtypes of an animal. It makes no logical sense to create an animal. Right, that's what an abstract class is. It's a lot of base functionality that you would share in subsequent classes, but it makes no logical sense to create that base class. Things would inherit from it. So that's my layman's term for what an abstract class is. Regardless, PowerShell doesn't support them. Yeah, yeah. You can create a janky version of it. So let's create an animal class. Okay. So we have an animal class. So here is a way to, and this is a runtime thing. This is not a compile time thing. I say, hey, if I ever try to create an instance of an animal, don't allow me. I'm going to throw an error. When the animal class gets instantiated and this constructor gets run, I'm going to find out what my current type is, and I say, well, if it's animal, don't do this. This is mimicking a little bit of the behavior of an abstract class. Is that in C# you wouldn't be able to. This would be a compile time error if you try to create an instance of it. This is a runtime check though. So let's create another class that inherits from animal, and we can obviously create let's try to create a animal. No, we can't. My error says no, animal is invalid, you have to inherit. Can I create a cow? Yes, I can. Can I make it moo? Yes, I can. So that's a way to mimic abstract classes. Interfaces, I don't know if there's a way to do that in PowerShell. So you can mimic them, sort of, if you want to do this. It's not strictly needed, but again, abstract classes are things that you don't actually create or would ever want to create an instance of it themselves. And here's a little bit more about the internals of classes. I have this my class, and I want to pass it a value. And in normal PowerShell and commandlets and functions, you do parameter validation for string length and matching this regex or something like that. How do you do that on a class method? You can't put parameter validation on this parameter that you're passing in. So here's I'm not necessarily advocating for this, but this is something you can play with. So what this does is relying on some magic PowerShell stuff. And here's the link to where I found this. So let's create a new instance. So I got a little homegrown parameter validation here. And why is that working? PowerShell is attempting to cast the string that I passed in, Brandon or BR, to make a new instance of validated name. And when the default the constructor of validated name gets created, at that point, it's using the normal parameter validation to set the value of that property. So this is relying on PowerShell's, casting from one type to another to do a little, janky parameter validation directly on classes. I'm not necessarily advocating the way to do this. I would just wrap them in normal PowerShell functions and just do it the normal way. But this is something I just saw that was interesting out there.
It'd be like it'd be like an email without actually using an email.
Yeah. It doesn't always work though. So this is a string, right? This is a value string. I'm passing string. I expect this thing to be a string. I passed it an integer. Well, integers can get cast to strings when it needs to. PowerShell is going to want to do what it wants to do to help you out. It thinks it's being nice, and it's not, Okay, so.
If you define that as a string, would it still change it?
No. So if I pass a string, it'll just work. It should just work the same.
What if you cast it as an integer?
Oh, like this? Let's see. Yep, this is the same thing. So.
I was thinking it was doing like the magic quotes, or it was trying to do when you have
Yeah. No joy. Can't do it. We can't have nice things.
So I'm curious, there was the question that got asked, if you create a soft dependency and a hard dependency in your PSM1, will it work?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Interrupt. Can you we have
Yeah, we're wrapping up right now.
There's
Okay.
waiting on 403 is open for questions though.
Okay. This is, some of the links that I have, some of my projects that I'm working on. You can see Saki, PoshBot, which I'll talk about later, OVF, Watchman, my old GitHub repo as well. It's not? Okay, I'll look at that. Thanks. Thank you.